Hello, everyone. It is wonderful to have you here. I'm Sambo Patrick, and what I wanted to cover today in about 15 minutes is perimenopause and menopause in high performing women and why smart women start to feel unraveled about it because it's quite disconcerting when it starts to happen, but there's a lot that can be done. So today is not about decline, it's about helping women understand their biology. It's not a personal failure. If you live long enough, you will go through menopause. And I put some slides together just to explain that the period before it, during it, and why it is so important that we start to have these conversations. So, this is for high performing women. It's for leaders and founders, women who are 40 onwards to 55, 60, and those who just don't feel themselves at the moment. You see, it is really important for women performing at a high level. And in fact, menopause can be more significant for women in this cohort, and I'll explain why. And unfortunately, we've got our fertile years and then we can slide into perimenopause, and hormone shifts can make a really big difference to our performance, how we perceive ourselves, how we make decisions, our energy levels, our sleep, the whole lot. So if you're wondering what's going on, hopefully there'll be some answers here. Now, the silent struggle, and I hear this all the time about weight. Weight's going on, I'm not doing anything different. And that's really disconcerting when you're used to having a handle over things in your life and things start to go sideways for no apparent reason. Broken sleep is so annoying, particularly when you've got meetings the following day and you can't really anchor down why you're just suddenly waking up, well, bright as a button and it's 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. and then again at 4 a.m., 5 a.m. Anxiety and irritability can become very problematic, and brain fog is said to affect up to 60% of women in the workforce in this age bracket. Now, currency and being relevant is what it's all about. And if we've got these things going on, we start to lose confidence. Now, these are not rare symptoms, these are very common. And as I alluded to, high performing women can suffer with these more than other pockets in the community. We're often told that you're stressed, that you're aging, and you've got to push harder. Now, the reality is that a lot of this is hormone driven. It's not a weakness. I want to make that very clear. Menopause is a natural transition if the woman lives long enough. It's not a mindset issue at all. It's very much biological. And this is one of the most important reframes that I want to suggest today is that we stop treating this like a disease, that we see it for what it is, which is a natural transition, and better equip ourselves with hormone literacy, understanding what's happening with our internal dynamics so we can master it and take control and agency back again. It's rarely a motivation problem, although after sleepless nights, I understand can become really distressing. So, what's happening hormonally? Various things can occur. Sex hormones that were produced by the egg are no longer produced by the egg once they're used up. And it's other parts of our body, such as our adrenals and fat supply, start taking on the role of producing those sex hormones. The female body and the male body, but the female body particularly, is such an incredible physiological being. It's all hardwired to do this naturally. Now, my experience of 20 plus years of measuring hormones, progesterone can do a couple of things, but generally it dives. Estrogen, interesting, can go up, it can normalize or drop. And the confusing part here for women is that low estrogen mimics high estrogen when it comes to flushes, depression, anxiety. So we need to get that diagnostic correct. And I utilize saliva testing in my clinic because it gives the most accurate information. It's not covered by National Health Services, though, so it is an out-of-pocket expense. But I find it is the best way to get the information that you need, which is the accurate information and the active hormone that's what's actually going on. Cortisol will often go up, but if a woman starts to burn out, it may bottom out and drop. And insulin sensitivity shifts, not to mention thyroid can get involved and all sorts of things can happen. So I just want to say here as well, with high cortisol, which is a common feature I find amongst high performing women, they will also be hypersecreting insulin. When you get the double whammy, the elevated cortisol and the elevated insulin, you will activate a system in the body called lipogenesis, lipofat to make lipogenesis more readily than if the cortisol was normal and the insulin was also normal. So that's just something to bear in mind. I do say to women, please do not eat when you're stressed because your body will handle it very differently when you've got those two hormones peaking. So, why do high performing women feel it more than other pockets of the community? Generally, I find they've got chronic pressure. So, you might get through to one deadline and think, oh, that's it. But then there'll be another one. So it's this continual leapfrogging in high pressure situations, very often coming from sleep deprivation, particularly if there are younger children, maybe a partner who snores, or maybe your brain just doesn't switch off. I call this the sandwich generation. You might have heard that before. We are not only carers for our children, but we're becoming carers for our aging parents. So we've got this duopoly going on, which is incredibly draining because suddenly you've got to think of all of these different pieces in your life. And even though the children might be getting older and asserting their authority in adulthood, they still want us in their life in some capacity. And this high cortisol lifestyle, got to get to work on time, find that car park, present for the boss, or if you are the boss, present for yourself and your staff. There is a lot of commitment going on. Now, the confidence shock. This is one of those other silent things that is coming out quite clearly that high performing women who are used to making decisions at a very executive level, when they go through this period, start doubting themselves. And they'll say, I just don't feel like myself anymore. It happened to me when I went through menopause, which was coming up for 10 years now. And I'm 57 this year, so it happened when I was 47. I actually thought I had malaria. I was spending a lot of time holding retreats in Bali and over in Bali, running through rice paddies, etc., and doing talks and presentations. Came back and started having these flushes in the middle of the night. So I thought, oh, yes, I've got a virus. And it was on the seventh night that I went, oh my gosh, you haven't had a period for 3 months. Then I started putting the pieces together and I realized that it wasn't the only part of my body that I'd lost agency over. I also realized that my confidence had dropped, that I had been gaining weight, that there were these other subtler things that I hadn't pieced together. And that was my perimenopause experience. It lasted for 6 weeks because that was it. I got rid of the symptoms in 6 weeks and it can be done. That is for sure once you know your numbers. So the confidence shock is a real jolt. It's not psychological, it's real. Physiologically, things are changing, and the more information you have about your own body, I know smart women will pack it back together pretty quickly. So the cost of not knowing where you're at, and this is what I really want to, I guess, shift the needle on in Australia because there are a lot of women in leadership positions, running small businesses, in executive roles, as managers, running teams that are starting to burn out. We've been going at it now for 20, 25 years, forging our careers, often juggling it with children and other commitments outside of work. And burnout is a very key feature I find in this age bracket. If we don't help women in this age, and if we pan out and look at it from a national level or a health perspective, we're going to lose a whole tier of women with incredible leadership skills, with incredible intellectual property and understanding of the workforce, businesses, and many decide to pull their careers back at this point. They either opt to do part-time work, which if you've got burnout is one of the sensible things to do, but keeping women engaged in the workforce is really important. Figures 25, 30% of women leave the workforce at this time because they find the peri and menopause is too much to continue in their executive roles. And that is such a travesty when they're coming to the pinnacle of their careers. It also puts a lot of strain on relationships. We know the highest divorce rates happen in this age bracket, and health can start to decline as well. So rather than push more, medicate the symptoms, because that's what's starting to happen. People are being told it's a disease you need medicating, outsourcing it, and ignoring what's really going on. I think it's really important to treat the underlying symptoms, to find out what's happening with hormones. So, as I said, the woman can become more empowered and take agency back over her body again. Because, as I said, we're just amazing, incredibly physiologically wired to do this naturally. So there is definitely a better way. And I really want to drive home that you're not broken, that you're in transition. And if that's my dying legacy, that would be fantastic. That menopause is a natural transition. The woman might feel broken, but she certainly is not. And there are many ways out of it. So we just need to know what is going on. So we need some clarity. We need to increase our hormone literacy. We need to have support and be treated as a whole, not just as a batch of numbers that can use AI to come up with different things. We need to treat the person or manage our symptoms as a whole. So clarity is a game changer. Validation that you're not going crazy is also a game changer. And having a roadmap out of it is the smartest way to re-ravel and get on with life. I love this. If you've got a partner, you might relate to this on the right-hand side. Windows up, down, aircon on, off. I have had clients over the years who say, young clients who say, oh, she's got the aircon up so high. And I've had women going through perimenopause saying, I just wish they'd turn the aircon down. Like it's this continual battle of trying to find the optimized temperature. It does exist when your hormones are not so needy and in balance. Now, just to reiterate, this is a natural time. The adrenal glands are the main part of the body that start taking over the production of these sex hormones that were once produced by the eggs. So I'm mainly talking about estrogen, progesterone, but sure, testosterone is in there, but I really classify testosterone as a stress hormone. Hardwired to do this naturally. Progesterone is made down the cortisol pathway. You can see there the second one in, or the pregnenolone pathway. Estrogens and testosterone come down the same pathway. So we don't just stop making hormones. We certainly keep making them. But if these guys or our adrenal glands are producing heaps of stress hormones, they might not have the capacity to take over the additional role of producing sex hormones. Now, this is an example of these are common changes that I see on saliva tests. This lady ran a small business and fatigued, came and saw me with low energy. She was quite shocked, and I was too, to be honest, when I saw these numbers. That I do find there's quite a large disparity between, or cognitive dissonance between women underthinking what's going on in their body and what's actually happening, which is why I love doing the saliva test. It validates everything. More importantly, it clarifies the roadmap out of here. So very low testosterone. Testosterone on this scale should have been 100. Hers was 40. When women drop their testosterone, we get low energy, low sex drive, low spark, low muscle mass. And she also had low progesterone. Progesterone should be 600, 800. Similarly, low sex drive is a key feature of low progesterone. Anxiety, weight, because progesterone is such a beautiful hormone. It balances out our estrogen. And it can, and definitely does, when it's low, create flushes. If you haven't had a flush, that is a horrendous feeling where it's almost like this, it almost happens instantaneously where you get this heat wave, and I would describe it as almost suffocation where you can't catch your breath and you've got to get everything off and get some air circulating and cool down because it's just the worst feeling. So, what have I done over the years? I've been a nurse since 1987. I was trained at the Royal Hobart. I've been a clinical naturopath and nutritionist and herbalist since 2002, qualified through university with my Bachelor of Health Science. I've had decades helping women with hormonal health. I even had 9 years in pharmaceuticals where I was responsible for cardiac drugs and chemotherapies for a period there. I love going on the media or in print media explaining and breaking down hormones for women because there is a big gap at the moment and women are hungry for this information. They want to know what's going on and how it impacts on them and what they can do to shift it and change it. So I really enjoy working with women in this space and high performing careers because as I've identified, our we've got to keep this tier of leadership going, supported, coming back stronger and not leaving the workforce. Interesting, no two women are the same. Everyone has their own DNA and their own response to their environments, and their hormones are exactly the same. These are some of the TV interviews, just a handful of the ones I've done over the years on various channels. Uh, so for me, the turning point is explaining to women what's going on in masterclasses, testing hormones, personalizing programs, giving executive support, and I also hold retreats. So I think I've gone backwards there. I wanted to show you cortisol levels. I've recently, in the last 12 months, started doing cortisol levels over the day. So from the morning, we do a cortisol level on waking, one late morning, one early or late afternoon, and one just before bed. And the information is astounding. This particular person, incredibly high cortisol on waking. Now, there's no way known she could lose weight because remember, I was saying before the high cortisol, and you'll also spike your insulin. You cannot lose weight when you've got this hormone picture. So we worked together over 2 months, came up with strategies to lower that cortisol naturally, and then she was able to lose weight. Now, if this resonates with you and you're not broken, which I really want to assure you of, that you're just transitioning, then please, I've got certain things I can help you with if you'd like deeper insights or your hormones tested. I've got various things on my website. I have a menopause mastery program that is specifically around peri and menopause, understanding hormones, and that roadmap, like we get the validation and the roadmap. So it's all on my website, sambopatrick.com. I'd love to help you with this. It is biology, and there certainly is a shortcut out of it. Rather than going the 5 to 10 years, I suggest making it, as short as possible by getting the information. And please share this with your girlfriends. There are solutions out there, and it is a natural time that doesn't need to be rugged. Thank you for listening.